The chandelier sparkled like a crown above the heads of presidents, billionaires, and global power brokers. This wasn't just any fundraiser. It was the World Unity Gala in Geneva, broadcast live in 23 countries. A quiet symphony played in the background. Laughter echoed, cameras flashed, and then came Donald Trump walking slowly toward the stage, waving, grinning. In the back row, wearing a simple, neat military form, sat Captain Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso. He had been invited, but mostly ignored. The room had barely clapped when he walked in. Trump took the mic. His voice boomed. Africa has, but only if we help it get back on the right track. The words sounded polished, but the tone was sharp, condescending. A few in the crowd chuckled politely. Some exchanged glances. Others stayed still. Trump didn't laugh. He leaned forward, his eyes locked on Trump. The camera caught it just for a second. Then Trump smirked again. They've got strong young men, but no strong leadership. Theo went cold. Even the music stopped. In that silence, Ibrahim slowly stood up. No one knew what was about to happen. But something in the air shifted. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't point. But when Ibrahim Traoré stepped into the aisle, even the security guards froze. His boots echoed as he walked toward their stage. Cameras zoomed in. Samian gasped. Trump raised his brows. "You've got something to say?" he asked with aggron. Trump didn't blink. He walked to the very front, stopped at the edge of the stage, and said, calm, steady, but piercing, "You will not touch Africa again." Silence. The room turned twice. "For centuries," Traoré continued, "you've taken our gold, our people, our peace, then told us we were too weak to stand." A woman in the front row covered her mouth. Tears welled up in her eyes. "But Africa is not a project. We are not your pity story. We're not your playground." The lights flickered. The moment felt unreal. Trump stepped back. For the first time, he looked uncertain. A journalist whispered, "Are we live?" Another muttered, "Oh my God, this will go viral." But Traoré wasn't done. He looked into the cameras. His voice trembled, not with fear, but with centuries of pain. "If this is leadership, then let the world see what real strength looks like." That moment, just 30 seconds long, set the internet on fire. Clips of Traoré's words flooded TikTok, Instagram, and global news. But as the online world watched inside the room, time seemed to toss. People weren't just surprised, they were shaken. A French ambassador whispered to Harad. He spoke like a son of the soil, like someone who carries graves on his back. In the front row, a black American tech CEO wiped his eyes. He thought of his grandfather, who had once told him, "Our story was stolen before it was written." Behind the scenes, Trump's team scrambled. "Shut this down." One whispered, "Too late," said another. Every camera in Harayas live. But Traoré wasn't grandstanding. He returned to his seat without saying another word. Still, everyone kept watching him. He wasn't trying to make headlines. He was just telling the truth. Later that night, a child in Ghana stayed up late, watching the clip on his mother's phone. He whispered, "Mama, is he a superhero?" She shook her head gently. "No," she said, "that man is what a father is supposed to be." And still, the world hadn't seen the hardest part yet. The night after the confrontation, while the world argued on social media, Traoré sat alone in his hotel room, hadn't watched the news. He didn't read headlines. He stared at a single photo, a boy in dusty sandals, smiling with a mango in one hand. That boy was Shim. That village, long forgotten by the world, still had no paved roads, no hospital, no working school. His mother had taught under a tree. His father had died when he was 6, not in war, but from a fever no doctor came to treat. And yet they had survived, smiling, sharing, loving. He remembered sitting under the star sand, whispering to his sister, "One day you'll make sure no child has to beg to be seen." That promise lived in his chest like fire. Back at the gala, people debated politics. But for Trump, this wasn't about speeches. It was about that mango, that tree, that village, and the fear that someone like Trump would come again with money and guns and rip it all apart. That fear had shaped him, but that night, it no longer controlled him. The morning after, Traoré woke to over 900 missed calls. The video of his confrontation had hit 35 million views. Al Jazeera called it the most powerful silence of the century. BBC called him Africa's lion. But others weren't sakined. He embarrassed a U.S. president. He's playing victim politics. He'll ruin relationships for Burkina Faso. His aide knocked softly. She looked worried. Captain, the embassy called. They say some donors might pull out. He nodded slowly. Let them. AYO looked up, eyes wide. Sir, we need that money for school. Traoré took a deep breath. Then we'll build schools with our hands, but not with our shame. She stared at him, unsure whether to cry or salute. Later that day, Traoré gave a short, quiet press conference. No microphone, just his voice. Africa has bled politely. For centuries now, we must rise gently but firmly. We're not asking to be saved. We asking to be left to heal. Behind the cameras, a Senegalese student whispered, he's not just a soldier, he's a sermon. That clip, just 10 seconds long, but even grown men cry. Back in Ouagadougou, inside a drawer he kept locked, Traoré pulled out a worn envelope. The corners were bent, the ink had faded. It was a letter from his father, one he had left before the fever took him. Traoré had never shown it to anyone. He opened at it slowly. His father's handwriting was shaky. My son, if you ever find yourself in a room where men wear power like crowns, speak for those who carry water on their heads. Speak for the women who give a birth without light. Do not be afraid. Even if your hands tremble, let your words hold the earth steady. And if they mocked you, remember they mocked our hunger too. But we are still here. We're still here. Tears rolled down Traoré's face. He folded the letter carefully and placed it back in the drawer. At that moment, across the world, a Nigerian paused her class. She opened her phone and played his clip. Her students watched, wide-eyed. One whispered, maybe one day I'll talk like that, too. And in the quiet of that dusty classroom, a continent penetrated just a little more. The news reached Traoré by noon. The World Unity Gala Committee had released a quiet statement. Captain Ibrahim Traoré's comments were inappropriate and divisive. The gala is about unity, not confrontation. It felt like a slap. Worse, the statement had been co-signed by a fellow African, President Ouattara of Côte d'Ivoire. Traoré had once helped Fundraiser's school project with personal donations. They had shared tea, laughed about their mothers, called each other brother. Malcolm was silent. Not even a message, not even a call. Ouagadougou, the room phone in hand. They're calling you reckless, she whispered. They're calling you dangerous. Traoré stared out the window. The city looked calm, but his soul was shaking. So be it, he said. But a war's voice cracked. Sir, we just lost our last Western medical grant. That money was for the maternity clinics. His hands trembled. So what do we do now? Shisked. He turned, voice low but clear. Now we fight the way we always shave, with truth and blistered hands. Head didn't blink, but inside something began to ache, and soon it would break. It rained in Ouagadougou. Hard thunder rolled over rooftops. Light tanks lightning cracked the sky. And inside the military compound, Traoré stood alone in the rain. His face lifted to the clouds, his lips silent. He was soaked to the bone, but he didn't move. Awa rushed out holding an umbrella. Captain, you'll catch cold. He didn't flinch. Do you know what Mimitha used to say? He whispered. She shook her head. When the rain comes hard, the ancestors say are crying because someone has forgotten their duty. He closed his eyes. I don't know if I did right, he added, but I know I didn't lie. Inside, the national health director had just called. Over 40 pregnant women across rural clinics had no medicine left. One woman was in labor, bleeding, 3 hours from the nearest hospital. The grant money was gone because he had spoken, because he had dared, as thunder rumbled again. Traoré whispered to the storm, please don't let them pay for my courage. But the rain answered with silence. And far away, a mother screamed into Theturk, waiting for help that might never come. By dawn, he had made his decision. He would go himself. He asked for no cameras, no press, not even a security convoy. He took one medic, one driver, one old army truck, and 3 boxes off supplies he bought with his own salary. They drove 4 hours. Dirt roads, potholes, no signal. They reached a remote village as the sun rose. A woman, lying on a wooden table, was crying and paying. Her name was Sami. She was 24, first pregnancy. She had walked 3 kilometers before collapsing. There was no doctor, no light, just panic and prayers. When Trey entered, the villagers froze. Some gasped. One boy whispered, "Is that the man from Thefone?" He didn't speak. He took off his jacket, rolled up his sleeves, held the flashlight. The medic worked fast. Blood everywhere. Amonada screamed. The baby wouldn't come. Time blurred. Then a cry. Then 2 twins alive. The room exploded in tears and cheers. But Traoré stayed outside. He sat on the bench and said bed quietly, exhausted, overwhelmed. One elder came to him, knelt, and said, "You gave her back her children. But what do we give you, son?" He whispered, "Just let me believe it was worth it." 3 days after Aminata's twins were saved, Traoré returned to the capital. Fjord had moved on. New headlines, new debates, new distractions, but his heart still carried the weight of Aminata's cries and the whispered words of the elder. "What do we give you, son?" Late that night, his personal phone beeped. Unknown number. He hesitated, then answered. A man's voice, calm, cold. "Captain Traoré, I speak for those who keep the world in balance." There was silence. Then the voice added, "Umbaras, a former U.S. president. Thatha's consequences." Traoré stayed quiet. "We don't need to hurt you," the voice said. "But we will cut your country off. Food, fuel, medicine, until the people beg you, Tobo." The line went dead. He stared at the wall for a long time. Then slowly he got up, walked to his desk and wrote in his journal, "They say if I stand, my people will suffer. But if I kneel, my people will never rise again." He closed the book and for the first time in years, he cried. The next morning, a package arrived from his childhood home in Kaya. It was from his aunt, wrapped in old cloth. Inside was a faded envelope marked with trembling handwriting, his mother's. She had passed the year he joined Thermi, but she'd left this behind. He opened it with shaking hands. "My son, Ichno, they will call you stubborn one day, dangerous. But I hope you are never ashamed of your fire because your father had it too." He spoke once at the town hall, said the French had taken too much. They came for him 2 days later. One never found his body, but I remember what he told me the night before they came. "Our blood may be buried, but our voice must remain loud. Don't lose your voice, Ibrahim. Even when they threaten you, even when they lie to you, even when the world pretends you're invisible, speak louder louder than pain. And if you ever feel alone, know that the land itself listens." Tears spilled onto the paper. He folded it and placed it in his breast pocket and walked into his next meeting with fire in his chest. That same day, a girl named Fanta, only 12 years old, walked 5 kilometers barefoot to reach a community center where there was a TV. She had seen Traoré's clip on Aniber's phone, grainy and shaky. But something in her heart had caught fire. She said nothing to anyone. She just walked. She arrived, dusty, tired, and hungry. When the receptionist asked what she wanted, she answered in a whisper, "I want to learn to speak like that man. The man who made the big manquiat." The receptionist blinked. Fanta repeated, "I want to learn to say things that make the world stop moving." They gave her water and food and a book. Far away, in a boardroom, leaders argued about sanctions. In another room, international press laughed off Tross impact. But in that little dusty center, one barefoot girl decided she wouldn't smile anymore. That night, just scribbled in a school book, "When I grow up, I'll speak for my village, like Captain Ibrahim speaks for Africa." And without knowing it, Trop had already lit a fire he couldn't see in hearts that had never dared to burn before. 1 week after his viral confrontation, the pressure reached its peak. 4 African presidents under quiet Western influence publicly distanced themselves from the World Economic Council blacklisted him. Aid froze. Threats doubled, so they assumed he would stay split, but he called a press conference. No luxury ballroom this time, just a basic podium under a mango tree near a public school in Ouagadougou. Dozens of foreign reporters flew in expecting a walk back. He stood tall, holding his mother's letter in his pocket. "You want me to apologize for telling the truth," he began. "You want me to pretend I don't remember the villages that were bombed, the children who drank from poisoned rivers, the schools that were never built because the contracts went to foreign hands." A hush fell, but I was not raised to trade truth for donations. He paused. "If being poor means we own our own voice, then let us be poor." A European reporter scoffed. "How long can you serve without help?" Traoré looked directly at him and replied, "We survived slavery. We survived slavery. We'll survive this, too." And just like that, he became more than a leader. He became a symbol. That night, while the press focused on sound bites, something else was happening. Inside a small radio station, a journalist named Cozy found an email leak. It was a video recording from a private UN donor meeting, never meant to be seen. In it, a wealthy Western diplomat laughed. "Let him bark. Sooner or later, they'll beg for fuel. We just want another," replied. He strung no, but cut their internet for a week. Watch the people turn on him. Size hand soak. He uploaded the file and posted it with a caption, "They think Africa's silence is for sale." I exploded Twitter, Facebook, WhatsApp, TikTok, all flooded with one line, "We're not for sale." People marched in the streets of Dar, Nairobi, Accra, Bamako, Ouagadougou. Some lit candles. Others chanted, "Protectra, protect our voice." At that moment, a boy in Zimbabwe drew a portrait of Trump, holding a map of Africa close to his chest with the words, "If he falls, we all fall." And that night, a continent that was always divided breathed in the Samaritan. Behind closed doors, a youth diplomat reached out quietly with a proposal. "Captain Traoré, we're willing to restore all funding, no conditions. Just issue a brief statement. Say your commitment to Trump was misunderstood." The room fell still. Even some of his advisors looked tempted. Hospitals were under pressure. Teachers hadn't been paid. The roads were breaking. He asked a dumb question. "Will the money come with of our minds?" Silence. "Will it come with foreign bases on our soil again?" More silence. He stood and pointed to a photograph on his desk, a picture of Aminata and her twins. "Tell your president," he said. "I saw life come out of blood and struggle. I saw joy where there was no electricity. I saw hope without dollars." He paused. "So no, I will not sell the future just to calm the present." As the envoy left defeated, one of Trump's staff whispered, "Sir, you just walked away from everything." Traoré replied, "No, he just protected everything that matters." The day Traoré refused a deal, a children's school in Bobo Dioulasso held its first debate event. The theme, "What does it mean to protect your people?" Ashy 13-year-old girl named Zanabust stepped up. She wore borrowed shoes and held the microphone with trembling fingers. They told Captain Traoré to sit down. He stood up. They told him to be quiet. He spoke. They offered him money to forget us. He remembered. The room grew quiet. "We don't have computers. We don't have air conditioners, but we have a voice." And he showed us that's enough. Samiana recorded her speech, just 58 seconds long. By nightfall, it had 20 million views. Even CNN aired it. Zanabu did never know. She had gone home to help her cook rice over a wood fire. Meanwhile, across the globe, African youth began sharing their own short videos. "I am not for sale. Africa will rise." A storm had started. Not with weapons, not with billionaires, but with truth spoken by the smallest myths, heard by the whole world. And at the center of it all stood one man. 1 month later, the African Union invited Captain Ibrahim Traoré to its summit. They wanted to give him the Continental Peace and Courage Award, a golden medal never before given to a head of state under 40. He arrived to thunderous applause. Young people lined the streets. Women sang dot. Old men raised their fists. Dot inside the conference hall. He stood quietly as the Secretary General handed him the medal, but instead of putting it around his neck, Trop paused, then headed around, walked toward a young girl sitting with her school class in the back row. It was Xanabu. He knelt before her and said softly, "This belongs to you because you're the world harder than mine." Eva cowed. He placed the medal in her lap, and Therum erupted in tears. No speech could follow that. No headline could capture it. That moment, of humility, of truth, of history, was their award. And somewhere, maybe beyond the world, his mother was smiling, because her son had not just spoken. He had listened. That night, Tro sat alone, in his compound courtyard, under stars. No lights, no noise, just the breeze, and the sound of children long in the nearby village. Awaj warned him quietly. "Sir," Shu whispered, "you know this isn't over." "They'll keep trying," he nodded. "Yes, but they know now. I won't break." She looked at him. "So what happens next?" He picked up a small notebook and wrote one line. "Build from the inside, heal from the root, protect without apology." Then he looked out at the night and whispered a final promise to the wind, to every African child. "As long as I breathe, your dignity will not be for Sali." Somewhere in Ghana, Fanta fell asleep with a pen in her hand. In Rwanda, a boy named Jacques told his sister, "I want to be brave like him one day." And across a continent, people cried, not out of pain, but because, for the first time in a long time, they believed. What you just witnessed was more than astry. It was a mirror, a memory, a movement. If your heart was touched, for your tears were real. If you believe Africa deserves better, click the like button, drop a comment. What part Medeo cry the most? And hit subscribe because this is where voices rise. Truth lives and dignity is never for sale. Africa is not silent anymore, and neither we.